My name is Ramon Mundo Mendoza, and I would like to thank Police and Fire Publishing for the privilege of contributing to this channel. PFP is responsible for publishing 4 of my books, one which I co-authored. The first of the 4 is titled Mexican Mafia, The Gang of Gangs, From Altar Boy to Hitman. Although it was published in 2011, I actually completed it in 1981, 3 years after I had defected from the Clica. I was doing time for 2 homicides, couldn't get it published from behind bars because CDC prohibited inmates from essentially profiting from their crimes. After being released from prison, life kicked in and it sat on the shelf for the longest. When the 90s came around, the movie and publishing world completely flinched at the thought of my book. The American Me Murders, an episode I will be sharing with you on this channel, doused any possible interest after 3 people connected with the movie were gunned down in the Big Hazard Ramona Gardens housing projects. It wasn't until 2011, 30 full years after I originally completed it, that Pete Bollinger offered to publish my autobiography. The Gang of Gangs contains lots of historical accounts, including first-hand events in which I actively participated on the outside and in prison, and it reveals how the M.E. established the original street foundation, what I called spreading the M.E. gospel on the streets of Los Angeles and beyond. The Gang of Gangs has also been a direct source of information for many other books that touch on the M.E.'s early days. Example, when The Black Hand was written by Chris Blatchford, the Gang of Gangs was extensively referenced with regards to the M.E.'s significant history. If there is one major highlight I would wish for any gang member reading this book, it definitely is not in connection with the glorification of the madness I orchestrated and helped orchestrate on behalf of my once beloved M.E. Instead, I would refer you to Chapter 18, titled, You'll Never Be Happy. The words of Sailor Boy's mother came back to haunt me. Sailor Boy was my VNE street gang brother, fellow Mexican Mafia member, and partner in multiple crimes. Finding my way out of that wicked life is what I find most attractive and compelling in this book. Sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly will demonstrate the contrast between the deeds I intended for evil and the amazing transformation initiated by someone much bigger than I. The next book with my name on it is the Mexican Mafia Encyclopedia, PFP's bestseller. It covers well over 60 years of madness, beginning in 1957, the birth of La M, to the present time. My co-author is Rene Enriquez, once known as Boxer from Artesia. Together we joined hands in what is the most comprehensive book ever written about the history and inner workings of the Mexican mob. Murders, conspiracies, international connections, and much more factual information are contained in this 425-page encyclopedia. In the updated second edition you see pictured, we bring the reader up to date, plus we added an alphabetical member index which allows anyone interested in any M.E. member to simply access him in the back of the book and locate the pages he can be found. It is required reading for any gang officer and historian and contains photos and graphics never seen before. In fact, many of these same photos have been jacked by some of the YouTube aficionados and merged into their stories. The next book I authored is titled Prison Menace, How Imprisoned Gang Members Exploit the Correctional System. There was a 19-year period in my life where 17 of those were wasted behind bars. I know that's peanuts compared to how they're giving out time today, but prison was my home away from home. I will tell you something crazy about my mindset when I was serving the evil one. I had fun doing time. I'm sure that sounds sick to many, but it was absolutely true. I loved doing time. 3 meals a day, hot shower, clean linen, clean clothes, drugs upon demand, running things, the life of Riley. This specialized book reveals the cat and mouse game played out in our penal facilities. Manufacturing, smuggling, and accessing shanks, smuggling and movement of illegal drugs, the techniques of how to manipulate staff members, and many other prison insights are detailed in this book, published in 2015 and updated in 2018. It appears that many gang officers are intrigued and curious about the 1968 San Quentin so-called shoe war. In 2015, I was asked by my publisher, Pete Bollinger, if I would write a book about this event. I remember telling him it really wasn't a war, although by hearing all the hoopla decades later, you would think otherwise. More than the brief skirmishes which occurred on September 14th and 15th of 1968, this story had much more history. There were many events leading up to this engagement, and an even bigger story to tell is the polarization of the North and South that occurred afterwards. I call it the Mexican contemporary version of the Hatfields and McCoys. The Shoe War, The History of Norteños versus Sureños, is the title of the book and touches upon a bigger picture. As the famous Paul Harvey once said, and now you know the rest of the story. Yes, sir, there was indeed a bigger picture. The division of the North and South would turn out to be a terrible outcome for inmates of Mexican descent. A few months before I joined the MA at San Quentin, I became one of the chief instigators and architects of this separation. I referred to the NF as Northern Farmers, a derisive acronym applied to them because after the Shoe War of 1968, the vast majority of members joining the NF were from Northern California. Most of the LA guys were neutral back in those days. This book will be available soon on this channel, so stay tuned as PFP will be making it available for those interested. The most recent of my literary endeavors is the Unholy Alliance, Mexican Mafia, Cartels, and Sureños. This book was released in 2019 and touches extensively on the historical and modern relationship between the Mexican Mafia and Mexican drug trafficking organizations. The effective utilization of Sureños is detailed with several law enforcement experts shown here, representing 7 agencies collaborating with me in this endeavor. The Unholy Alliance reveals the co-conspirators of an international organized criminal coalition who have perfected the art of exploiting our nation's security, our communities, and the U.S. prison system. This nightmare is taking place, a tsunami of death and destruction, and rocking the foundation of our nation right before our very eyes. You will be introduced to the suppliers, brokers, and facilitators of drugs, murder, and institutional corruption, 21st century style. Like manna from above, the already thriving multi-billion-dollar drug business owned by the Mexican cartels has been dealt a strong hand in the high-stakes game. For those interested in my books, they can be obtained by navigating to www.policeandfirepublishing.com. Additionally, I will be contributing many episodes and profiles from events detailed in my books and from personal experiences of back in the day. Having rubbed elbows with over 95% of the MS heavy hitters and original members, I have probably forgotten more than what most people remember from that life of insanity. If you desire fairy tales and propaganda, I'm sure that's out there for your enjoyment. Help yourself to some popcorn and seek your entertainment. If you seek the raw truth, you may not like what you hear, but it's real. It did occur, and I did ultimately jump off the runaway truck with no brakes. I thank God for this, for rescuing me from myself, and I hope and pray you will be edified. Enjoy the channel.